Yes.
All right, my name is Javier Martinez, and I'm going to be doing my speech on animal testing. Just to give you a little background of what animal testing is, or animal experimentation, is when the use of animals in experiments for furthering science, medicine, food, cosmetics, this type of thing. Now, my proposition is that animal testing or experimentation is actually unnecessary and an obsolete practice. And I believe this for several reasons. Number one, I believe that animal testing is a cruel and torturous practice. Also, it has been proven to be scientifically inefficient and inaccurate. And lastly, in our modern world, we have actually developed many alternatives to animal experimentation. But now to my first point, that animal testing is cruel and torturous. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, in their annual report of animal usage for the fiscal year of 2014, they stated that in the U.S. alone, over 1 million animals were used in these animal tests. And this includes dogs, cats, guinea pigs, primates, things of this nature. This actually excludes amphibians and reptiles and livestock experiments. Well, also in mice and rats. Actually, the figure for mice and rats is over 100 million, according to this report. Now, according to Jeremy Bentham, who is a widely known philosopher who came up with the utilitarian school of thought, he stated that a being doesn't deserve rights, whether it's because they can speak or rationalize, or rather if they can feel pain. So, I mean, I'm sure many of you probably have pets. When you go home and you see your pet, what's the first thing your dog or cat does? They greet you, they're happy to see you. So clearly they have emotions, and this shows that you can actually not only feel happiness, but they also feel pain. According to Dr. Hope R. Ferdosian, who is a physician on the Committee for Responsible Medicine in Washington, D.C., and she's also on the Department of Medicine at George Washington University, has stated on the matter, animals demonstrate coordinated responses to pain in many emotional states that are similar to those exhibited in humans. Animals share genetic, neuroanatomical, and physiological similarities with humans, and many animals express pain in ways similar to humans. Additionally, animals also share similarities with humans in genetic, developmental, and environmental risk factors for psychopathology. This means that not only can animals feel physical pain, but they can also feel emotional pain, such as stress, depression, and actually many of these animals die, sometimes not due to the experimentation itself, but because they are bred just to be experiments. I mean, they're isolated. They never have any quality of life besides being injected with diseases. Sometimes their skin is burned off, things are drilled into their heads. They just test all kinds of different things on them. So as you can see, this is very cruel. These animals, what they do besides come into the world just to suffer, But now on to my next point. Animal testing is inefficient and inaccurate. According to a poll conducted by the Pew Research Center, they concluded that 50% of Americans are opposed to animal testing, and the other 50% only endorse it because they believe that it's advancing science and medicine, when in fact this has actually been proven to be inaccurate. Kathleen Hesler, who's a clinical professor of law and director at the Animal Law Clinic of Lewis and Clark Law School, mentioned that about 70% of the ingredients found in coffee are actually toxic to many animals. So if we're going by what's toxic to animals, then we shouldn't be able to drink coffee either. Another example is penicillin is toxic to pigs and hamsters. Tylenol is fatal to rats. So not everything lines up when it comes to animals and humans. We're really different. Something else that's important to know is that artificially induced diseases in animals are nowhere near the same as the natural occurring ones that happen in humans. In fact, the former National Cancer Institute director, Dr. Richard Klausner, stated that for decades, cancer has been cured in mice. for a long, long time. There's been over 100 cures for mice cancer. However, these always fail in clinical trials for humans. Similarly, Jared Bailey, who's a researcher, he did research with chimpanzees and AIDS, stated that as of 2015, there have been 85 cures for AIDS in primates. And these are supposed to be our closest relatives, according to biology. And yet, none of these have been effective in taking away AIDS in humans. And even the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration, has stated that about 9 out of 10 of these clinical drugs fail the studies due to the inaccuracy to predict how they will behave in people based on laboratory and animal studies. So we can see that it's all these experiments that we're conducting. I mean, these animals are dying for what? To help us out? Actually, no. What do we have to prove that it's helping us? But now on to my final point. And it's that we've actually developed much more efficient forms of testing products instead of having to use animals. For example, tests on laboratory-created organs, cells, and tissues have advanced science and medicine greatly. For example, at the Harvard Wyss Institute, they've actually invented organs on chips, which consist of human cells grown in a state-of-the-art system that mimic the structure and function of human organs and organ systems. And in fact, these have actually been implemented in certain laboratories and experiments and can accurately predict, or actually I say, more accurately predict how things will react with the human body as opposed to animal experiments. And we also live in a modern day of technology and advancements. So our efforts should be put more, because we have to conduct human trials either way. We always, even after testing a substance 100 times on animals, human trials have to be conducted either way. So why don't we put our efforts more into these human trials in order to be more accurate and spare the animals? In summary, animal testing is just cool. I mean, how would you like to be drilled? Or how would you like to get your skin burned? Or how would you like to be infected with a fatal disease? No one wants that, you know? And just because these animals can't express their pain doesn't mean they don't feel it. So, animal testing is cruel, it is inefficient and inaccurate, and it is also, and that we have many alternatives to animal testing.
All right, Javier, propositions clearly identified, although the phrasing has multiple components in it, so you want to be careful about that. There's a very good preview, so you lay out the structure, the secondary points. The first point, though, is mostly a claim of value, and when you're quoting philosophers, that's usually a good tip-off that you're making a value argument rather than an issue of fact. So that's a little bit problematic. You draw analogies and comparisons in the second point, and then you deny those analogies and comparisons in the first point, and then you deny those analogies and comparisons in the second point. So that's a little inconsistent. I think that there's something problematic with that. The notion that animals, I mean, in the first point you talk about how they have all these similarities in genetic traits, and they feel pain, and they physical characteristics are the same like us, and then you say, but we can't really make any inferences on them because 70% of them can't drink coffee. And I'm going, well, then there are differences. The question is, do the differences matter? Do they undermine the comparison? The best evidence that you had in your argument concerned the inability to find cures for cancer, even though we've done extensive animal research, inability to find cures for AIDS, even though we've done extensive animal research, and that 90% of the research that we have done has failed to produce any particular outcome that's beneficial. However, that does seem to suggest that there has been some outcome that's beneficial as a consequence. So the question then is, could that have been replaced by these alternatives? And I thought that you did an okay job outlining the general idea of alternatives in the third point, By the way, the whole third point was in overtime, so that, like, you went 2 minutes overtime, and that's where all of that argument was. So you want to be a little bit careful about that. I think it's nicely delivered to the audience, and you've got a good summary at the end. Like I said, the first point, I think, is too focused on some value issues, and I think you'd be better off just focusing on the inefficiency of animal research to find cures for disease. All right, thank you.